At the end of this pier stands a gift, an Asian-style tea house, a generous donation by a local millionaire to the Timmendorfer Strand municipality. Are you pleased with this gift?
No, absolutely not.
Municipal leaders and the millionaire donor don't see eye to eye on the tea house.
If I'm gifting something to you, you don't have any say in how it's done. Either it's built the way I want it, or you can say no, you don't want it at all.
How much power do the German super-rich wield in their hometowns and cities? Who decides what happens in our communities?
I never like committing myself long-term. I always like to reserve the right to make new decisions.
It's a new feudalism and not democracy as we know it.
Municipal Representative Jorn Eckert was skeptical from the beginning. Was the gift giver acting in the interest of the community? Now, his doubts have been confirmed.
The building materials and the workmanship were poor, and now the windows have to be replaced. We're the ones left holding the bag. The original costs were around 800,000 euros. I'm estimating there'll be another 30% on top. That's over €1 million to repair the damage now.
The back and forth over the tea house started about a decade ago. At the time, we visited Jürgen Hunke, the donor, at his home. A self-described self-made man, he said he was a fan of the art of the Far East, and he told us he had worked for every cent of his fortune.
For 40 years, I've been getting up at 5 a.m. Then I exercise for 2 hours. I allow myself that. I feel good about it. Then for 35 years, I've treated myself to 2 hours of massage every morning. There are 100 unemployed masseurs in Lübeck, and they're happy to be able to come to me and give me a massage for a good price.
The tea house was his big vision. It only existed as a model back then. What would you like to have there?
Just art, exhibitions, readings and the like, all in glass, and that's all white, gleaming over the whole of the Bay of Lübeck.
Just like his own white houses gleaming behind the dunes on the beach. At the time, the would-be benefactor had already poured at least €1 million into the tea house, which is named after his publishing company. Critics slammed it as a form of advertisement, but Hunke was dismissive.
People with no argument say this sort of thing. I think Mikado is better than naming it Jürgen Hunke. The important thing is it's being built.
He got his way. Today, the tea house shines over the Bay of Lübeck, just like he wanted. As far as the follow-up costs are concerned, Hunke rejects responsibility and accuses his critics of slander. For the local council, the building is a permanent headache. Has the council learned its lesson?
Yes, absolutely.
All of Jürgen Hunke's subsequent proposals have been gracefully rejected by the municipality. Donations are a good thing, generally speaking. But who decides where a tea house, university, or opera house should be built? Democratic bodies or millionaires? Cash from the wealthy can end up making waves. We traveled to Kiel, where a soccer patron's big plans got too big in the end. This is the story of the Holstein Stadium, home to local soccer club Holstein Kiel. Wealthy Holstein fan Gerhard Lütje wanted to build a new stadium. The 81-year-old entrepreneur's motto was, "No half measures." The new arena, car-friendly, with an event and congress center, sports store, betting office, and 5-story parking garage. Garden allotments and a sports hall would have to go. Does Gerhard Lütje know how his plans might affect the people expected to make way for them? We can't say. He turned down our request for an interview. As one of Kiel's largest entrepreneurs, he exerts a tangible influence on the state capital. Locals know him as the founder of City Park malls on the outskirts of the city. Car-friendly shopping, large parking lots, that's his thing. He used the same architects for the stadium design. On match days, residential areas near the stadium are already jammed with fan buses and cars. People worry that when the Congress Center opens, there'll be even more traffic. Earlier this year, neighboring garden allotments were leveled to make way for the new access road.
Watch out you don't slip down there.
Residents and environmental activists founded a civil initiative to fight back.
Man hat das Gefühl, es ist alles im Grunde erledigt, abgehakt.
There's a sense that everything's been decided, whether or not we register our opposition. It feels like we're not being listened to at all.
Man hat nicht das Gefühl, dass man in irgendeiner Form gehört wird.
Wir sind ja nicht dagegen, dass man dieses Stadion an sich ausbaut.
It's not that we're against the expansion of the stadium per se, but the dimensions shouldn't be so extreme. The plans include a Congress Center, which is just completely out of place here, and a huge road for 1,000 cars. It's just too much.
And in the case of Holstein in particular, there's another factor at play with the investor. I think this is some sort of vanity project, that he wants to establish a kind of memorial to himself here.
Whenever Herr Lütscher presents his wish list, it gets ticked off. No one seems interested in publicizing alternate suggestions.
These people are calling for a complete rethink of the stadium expansion. In an era of climate change, it could be smaller, car-free, perhaps even made of wood. Gerhard Lütscher's plan looked very different and required 30 million euros of taxpayers' money. Alois Altmann from the Taxpayers Association doesn't approve.
Herr Lütscher is a generous supporter of the club. It's very altruistic, but it's not only altruistic.
What's not altruistic about it?
Well, it's a way for him to buff up his image so that he can earn money with the city brand. But he's not contributing all that much to the overall project. The investor wants his plans executed. But if the city and the state don't play along with plans of this scale, then the plans might need to be made more modest. That's not my job to say. I'm the guardian of taxpayers' money, and it's my job to say, be careful. You can't throw cash around like there's no tomorrow. Professional soccer is awash with cash, and the earnings aren't bad either. We've got another club in Kiel. They're the Bayern Munich of handball. They don't get any public money. I approve of that. Public money belongs in school sports and popular sports, not in professional sports.
How does the club see it? The German Football League, or DFL, earns around 1.1 billion euros from TV rights alone. Players and managers earn millions. So how come there's no money for the expansion of a stadium? On the day we're filming, the first rumors emerged that Gerhard Lütscher wants to pull out due to skyrocketing construction costs. Holstein Club president Stefan Schneekloth is on edge. The fact is that if the stadium expansion is to go ahead, it'll require 30 million euros of taxpayers' money. Why do you need the money? If you're getting 6 million in TV rights every year and doing very well.
I can't answer that. You're mixing everything up and you haven't done your homework. I've got nothing to say.
Dazu kann ich nichts sagen.
He cuts the interview short. The media spokesperson intervenes, but doesn't want to speak to us on camera. Questions about money aren't welcome here. Evidently, questioning the idea of using tax money for soccer is viewed as outrageous. Our cameraman tries again.
Who's making money from it now, the investor or the club?
So if you're involved in soccer, I can't earn any money with soccer.
Okay, so you can't earn any money with soccer.
Yes.
Yes, that's interesting. No one earns money.
Yeah, I'll happily explain it to you.
Please do explain. So with soccer, you...
But not in front of the camera.
Why not?
I can't.
But why can't... I don't understand. Of course you can earn money with soccer.
The question your colleague asked was who?
Who will benefit from the expansion if it goes ahead as planned in the ideal scenario?
Yes. Of course, the club benefits, as I just said, from a much-needed new stadium with modern infrastructure. Improving our national standing also places national focus on Kiel, which is most definitely a contributing factor in boosting the fortunes of the state capital.
Okay, so when investors put in so much money, are they just passionate about sports?
You could say that.
The day we have an appointment scheduled at City Hall, Gerhard Lütje's expansion plans are still on track. The development is about to be approved by the city's mayor. Ulf Kempfer is aware of residents' complaints regarding traffic and environmental damage. What we want to know, to what extent can a patron put pressure on a city where funds are tight? So how does it work? What goes on behind the scenes? Do you say, perhaps we can put in 20 million in tax money? Then he says, no, that's not enough, we need 30. Is that how it works?
Well, I'm speaking in general terms, of course.
Oh, please, be specific.
No, it's always the same procedure. Of course, there's always a tussle. No one can force the city to plan a stadium just by offering to develop and subsidize it. Conversely, the city can't force anyone to spend millions on building a stadium. In other words, you need the wrangling to agree on a joint solution where both sides can say, yes, this is how the project can work.
Wo beide Seiten nachher sagen, ja, so kann das Projekt funktionieren.
Critics say the city is giving too much.
Ja, ich sehe es umgekehrt.
For me, I'm happy if a stadium corporation, which is likely to be made up of a variety of different partners, relieves us of this burden.
Diese Last abnimmt.
If I want to make all the decisions, then I have to build it myself. And then I have to tell the people of Kiel the city won't manage with the 10 million we're giving now.
Die Stadt nicht mit 10 Millionen auskommen, die wir jetzt geben.
We'd have to spend much, much more. Then we build the stadium exactly the way we want it. But that also means the taxpayer has to spend much, much more, and we bear the financial risk.
Und wir tragen das wirtschaftliche Risiko.
A day later, the news hits. Gerhard Lütje has put his plans on ice due to spiraling construction costs. But his office also tells us that the development scheme has been overwhelmingly approved by the city. Who's picking up the tab now? No one knows. Success or failure? Patrons often hold the cards. What motivates them? The city-state of Hamburg has Germany's highest concentration of millionaires. Today, we're meeting one of the country's richest men. Klaus Michael Kühne, Hapag-Lloyd's major shareholder. The shipping company is celebrating its 175th birthday at Hamburg's City Hall. For Hamburg's high society, patronage is de rigueur. Kühne's own charitable foundation distributes some 30 million Swiss francs every year. The billionaire agrees to give us an interview. We meet along the Alster River, in a luxury hotel that he owns. Whenever he visits his native city, he stays here. His father transferred the German family's residence to Switzerland, a tax haven, long ago. The Kühnes haven't paid taxes in Germany since. Klaus Michael Kühne keeps us waiting. 2 hours. Leaving us ample time to think about his foundation. The 30 million Swiss francs are channeled into projects that reflect his interests and inclinations. He owes his fortune to logistics. In Hamburg's Hafen City, he set up Kühne Logistics University, dedicated to educating professionals in the sector. A die-hard soccer fan, Kühne sponsors his home team, Hamburger SV. The Elbphilharmonie benefits from his love of classical music. Critical reports about Kühne do surface, most recently concerning his company Kühne & Nagel stonewalling over its Nazi-era activities. We're only granted an interview because he wants to talk to us about his patronage activities.
Sorry about the delay.
You could just enjoy your retirement, but you're still very active. Why?
Ja, weil ich viele Interessen habe und das hält mich.
Because I have a lot of interests. It keeps me young physically, but mentally first and foremost. And at the same time, it's a duty, so to speak. If you've been successful, then you should allow others to share in that success.
Gesunde Form.
I think it's a very healthy way to invest money instead of just paying taxes or spending the money on unnecessary things.
Dinge auszugeben.
A major beneficiary of the Kühne empire, the Elbphilharmonie. The billionaire sponsors the world-famous concert hall and donated over €1 million toward its construction. Anyone who's anyone in Hamburg donates money to the Elfi. On the wall, listing the names of donors, the Swiss national Kühne keeps company with other illustrious Hamburg families.
Auf der Wand ist es relativ einfach. Die oberen Namen.
The names along the top are mostly individuals and organizations who donated more than $1 million. Some private donors and companies prefer to remain anonymous. We've got some very well-known companies supporting us, but it's not publicized.
Ohne dass es an die große Glocke gehängt wird.
The Kühne Foundation is among the 6 main sponsors. His name, unmissable. Also part of the agreement, the Christine and Klaus Michael Kühne Sky Lounge. He can entertain friends or business partners on the exclusive roof terrace.
Es ist völlig klar.
For sure, no one gives money like this for nothing. He's doing it for a reason. It could be his great love of music. It could also be his status.
Gutes und rede darüber.
Okay. Does he decide what's in the program?
Einmischen würde ich sagen.
Decide? That's going too far, I'd say. He has a firm opinion. He doesn't like everything that happens here. He has very specific preferences.
Was glauben Sie denn, wie das ist? Sie sind so ein großer
You're a major donor, and if you say, contemporary music isn't my thing, I don't really like it, do you think that makes them nervous?
No. Unless I'd stop the sponsorship, of course. But I won't go that far. I will give my opinion. I'm always very, very open and straightforward.
But that's a possibility? You might say, I don't like it, I quit?
If something really displeased me, if the nature of the performances there were to change completely, then it's not out of the question. I don't like to make long-term commitments. I've just reconfirmed this music festival for the next 3 years, but that's the longest period I'll commit to. I always like to reserve the right to make new decisions.
Do good and exert influence. Klaus Michael Kühne regularly surprises Hamburg with new cash gifts, but not all of them are gratefully received. Fans use salty language to condemn a planned €120 million donation. Another unwanted gift, his recent proposal for a new opera house. The Lord Mayor said no thanks. The city already has one. Kühne has a lot of money to give away. That's not surprising. Hapag-Lloyd's profits are huge, some €6.2 billion in 2021 alone. Klaus Michael Kühne collected around €1.9 billion in dividends. Due to a special regulation for shipping companies, known as the tonnage tax, company profits were taxed at a rate of just 0.65%. Critics say it's an obscenely small amount going into the tax coffers.
Given Hapag-Lloyd's current earnings, that's absolutely right.
So you have a problem with these earnings?
Yes, correct. It's too much.
It's too much.
Much too much. I didn't come up with the idea. When I first realized how this tonnage tax is calculated, I was surprised. It's an anachronism, since it doesn't exist in any other industry. To be honest, I find it rather strange.
The tonnage tax is the purview of the Hamburg Senate. Deputies recently voted against abolishing these tax benefits for shipping companies. The motion was brought by Norbert Hackbusch, a representative of the Left Party in Hamburg. The left-wing politician is critical of the shipping magnate.
Well, his patriotic duty would be to actually pay taxes in Hamburg if he really feels like a citizen of Hamburg. But he doesn't.
In our interview, he said he likes to give something back to society. He's doing good things. Why aren't you happy about that?
Because he's behaving like the lord of the manor. He's acquired his wealth for reasons we could discuss at length, and he doesn't even have the grace to say, "I'll just give it to you. Do with it what you will because I've received too much." No, he wants to call the shots. So he's always trying to dictate his tastes. That's a new feudalism, not democracy as we know it.
The private wealth of the rich is growing steadily, and more of them are putting their cash into foundations. Charitable foundations don't pay any tax. Critics say the money would be better off in the tax coffers than in foundations, that it's better if the state and democratic institutions get to decide how the money is spent, rather than individuals. What's your view?
Well, I don't see it that way at all, because it's well known that the state isn't capable of running itself properly. Firstly, a great deal is suffocated by bureaucracy. Secondly, state organizations may not act and think so commercially. In my view, the private sector should be given plenty of scope to ensure that things work much better.
The billionaire thinks the state's role should be diminished. Others disagree. We're on our way to Mainz, to a political youth festival focusing on tax justice. Stephanie Bramer comes from a rich family. She uses games to explain that inheritance is a matter of luck, and that wealthy people like herself don't pay enough in taxes. Along with other millionaires, she's involved in the initiative Tax Me Now. Not something you hear very often.
It's not as though by giving something away I'd be left with nothing. Not at all. But if I give something away, then the state can invest a little more in environmental protection, in functioning education and health systems, and so on.
Stephanie Bramer could just lead a quiet and comfortable life. I'm wondering, why are you doing this?
Unfortunately, we've seen that when wealthy people who benefit from these tax advantages speak out against them, people sit up and listen. When we say, I benefit, but I'm nevertheless in favor of change so that everyone fares better, not just me. Other people who aren't rich but say the same thing are often accused of being envious of the wealthy. And I can't be accused of that. Many people don't want charity. We can't try to solve social problems with a trickle of cash or a band-aid in the form of philanthropy. And yes, the state isn't perfect at distribution, but I think it does a very competent job of fulfilling many tasks.
Together with the Tax Justice Network, Tax Me Now calculated how much additional revenue could flow into public coffers if higher taxes were levied on income from the super rich. Looking at inheritance, capital, assets, and other resources, they arrived at an annual figure of 80 billion euros.
The good thing is that in Germany, rich people are in the minority. And in a democracy, if the majority decides on something, the minority has to go along with it.
In the German city of Heilbronn, one man's shadow looms particularly large. Currently the wealthiest person in Germany, local man Dieter Schwarz heads up the Schwarz Group, which owns the discount supermarket chains Lidl and Kaufland. Do you know the name Dieter Schwarz?
Yes, of course, everyone knows him.
That's the guy from Kaufland and Lidl.
But not personally, you don't see him about.
No one's allowed to publish a photo of him, only when he dies.
Does he influence life in the city?
Sure, he owns pretty much everything here.
What do you think of that?
I'm pleased he wants to invest his money here. He could move it to Switzerland.
We're lucky to have Herr Schwarz. If we didn't have him, the city centre wouldn't look so good.
He's a role model.
For you as well?
Yeah, for me too.
Although it's good that he does so much, it's a double-edged sword. We also need room for people who maybe don't have money, but do have great ideas. That's not the case.
Dieter Schwarz, omnipresent yet invisible, doesn't give interviews. No one here knows his face, but everyone is familiar with his interests, namely education and research. He even founded an educational campus here, where 16 buildings house 5 institutions for higher education. The main focus, trade and business. Everyone in Heilbronn knows Experimenta with Lidl's distinctive eye. Critics of the local benefactor are too afraid to go on camera. They say Schwarz wields too much power, that his dealings with city authorities are too opaque, hard to grasp, just like his company structure. The Lidl company structure is complex. It includes 7 foundations and 4 non-profit limited liability enterprises. Some profits might be channeled in this direction, tax-free, and at the disposal of the generous son of Heilbronn, Dieter Schwarz. The billionaire's recent coup was impressive. Heilbronn won the contract for Germany's new artificial intelligence innovation park. The 5 locations in the competition included Freiburg, Karlsruhe, and Stuttgart. So why Heilbronn? That's a question bothering the Free Democratic Party parliamentarian Hans-Dieter Scherer.
The Ministry of Economic Affairs indicated that Heilbronn won the contract because the park will be in a spot where there's a campus, and that the financing is secured, namely that the Dieter Schwarz Foundation has pledged to make up for the shortfall in funds. So in a nutshell, a cynic might say it was bought. That conclusion could be drawn.
Who bought what from whom?
Dieter Schwarz said, I'll finance it for you. And the committee said, if we've got someone who's paying for it, wonderful. And they ignored any other options.
You weren't able to evaluate the criteria used.
No, not at all. I checked again this afternoon. The minister's response is that it's confidential and she won't tell us. We'd simply like to see the criteria, the scaling that led to this decision. And I think we owe it to our citizens. Even if it's just €1 of taxpayers' money being spent, I believe we're accountable.
The Ministry of Economic Affairs insists that a high-caliber committee of experts made its decision in a transparent, competitive process. But details of the financing are secret. Confidentiality is important, the Dieter Schwarz Foundation informs us. We're at City Hall for an appointment with the mayor of Heilbronn. Surprisingly, he cancels at the last minute and sends his media spokesperson instead. But it's soon clear she's not going to tell us anything substantial. So we insist on our pre-arranged interview with the mayor. And suddenly, he does have time for us. Dieter Schwarz supported Mayor Harry Merkel in his election campaign. There are rumors that the two men are friends and that they meet at the Lions Club. It feels as if we've entered a murky world.
Dass da immer so viel hineingeheimnist wird.
People say there's so much secrecy, and Dieter Schwarz's relationship with politics is such a close one, and so on. Can you understand how that looks to people on the outside?
Certainly, we're an open book. You're doing your job and seeing if there's anything that needs to be uncovered and shared with the general public. And stories like this, they arise. I don't think there's anything you can do about that. And as I said, we've already had a certain amount of experience there, and we can live with that.
Then I'll just ask the question directly. What's the nature of your connection with Dieter Schwarz? What is your relationship?
We have a good relationship.
Are you friends? Have you known each other long? You're both from Heilbronn.
If you have a good relationship with someone and you want it to stay that way, then you don't say much about it.
So what will happen when Dieter Schwarz dies? He's pretty old.
We'll see. He's in such good health, I hope he's got many, many good years ahead of him.
I wholeheartedly wish him the same. But still, he must be well over 80. What happens when a donor like him can't be active anymore?
I'm sure he's taken that all into account and made all the necessary arrangements.
So the tap isn't suddenly turned off.
That too.
You hope or you know?
Now I'm like you. Now I just believe.
You believe that?
Yes.
It was worth a shot. We decide to try another tack and meet with someone from the transparency initiative Frag den Staat, or Ask the State. Max Kronmüller and his colleagues approach authorities with specific inquiries, citing the Freedom of Information Act. Often they're able to break through the silence. But in Heilbronn, Max Kronmüller encountered some unusual hurdles right away.
State-level fee regulations stipulate inquiries can cost a maximum of 500 euros. Heilbronn hasn't capped the rate at 500 euros, but at 10,000. Slight difference.
Interesting. So what does that mean?
It's disastrous, of course.
No one can afford that.
Precisely, no one can afford it. So it's not used, effectively nullifying the law.
Okay.
The city of Heilbronn informs us that state legislation allows for these maximum fees. Today, Max Kronmüller looks over the minutes of the municipal council meetings. The city sold the land for the educational campus to the Dieter Schwarz Foundation. Why? The mayor told us everything was transparent and recorded in the minutes. Max Kronmüller disagrees.
The truly relevant points, we can't see them. I want to know how projects come about and how they're realized. At what cost? What are the contributions from city and foundation? Which opinions are considered? Is there any citizen involvement? All questions these documents can't answer.
Meanwhile, we've made 7 separate enquiries to the city, the district authority, and the state, with no success. One of the reasons given, the Dieter Schwarz Foundation hasn't agreed to share the information. We look for a donor who'll give us a peek behind the scenes, and find him in Lübeck. The town has 122 foundations. Michael Haukohl started one of them. This year, he donated some 400,000 euros to local schools. Again, he likes to check in person.
Hello, can we come in?
He donated a 5-day team-building trip to this class.
How was the food and accommodation?
It was actually pretty okay. We had to build a boat ourselves and survive on it.
Any other comments?
I thought it was good that when one person struggled to do something, the class motivated him.
We used to have more disagreements, but because each of us interacted a little with people we don't normally talk to, it helped us to get along better.
I'm interacting a lot more with the whole class now.
Super, that's excellent. I'm pleased you've done it, and pleased to hear your positive reports. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much. Frau Herzmann, thank you.
It's real, it's direct, you can ask questions, it's ideal.
Der Vorteil ist für Sie?
Why do you like doing it this way?
We set up the foundation because we don't have children, and I'd say we have quite a few now. We live for this. That's at the heart of it. Sitting at a desk, getting an application and saying, yes, we'll do it, that's no fun.
Principal Jörg Haltermann can count himself lucky. Thanks to benefactor Halkohl, his school has a lot to offer. Anti-bullying programs, conflict mediators, a photography project, school trips. Foundations finance more than 30 projects here.
We can be happy whether it's in Lübeck, Kiel, or Neumünster if there are donors or foundations that support schools when budgets are squeezed. Actually, it would be fairer if we received funding from the central government, if all schools were equally equipped and funded.
So where you go to school ends up being a bit of a lottery.
Precisely.
Michael Halkohl personally selects the schools his foundation works with. The chemistry between donor and school leadership team has to be right, he says. The school's annual budget planning meeting is taking place today. The city has come to rely on the foundation's generosity.
The way it's worked for years now is that we receive a proposal from you at the end of the school year about the projects you'd like to do in the next school year to improve your students' social skills.
Let's start with Marburg concentration training. We'd really like to carry on with that. We offered it last year already.
Exactly, we did it in our school last year and it worked out well.
The new Year 5 class trip, they want to swim. Is that something you'd help with? With a focus on swimming and the kids who haven't learned yet?
We're open to that idea, my wife in particular. Everyone in Lübeck needs to be able to swim with all the water here. I'll go out on a limb for my management board. You'll have to back me up, but my wife's on my side.
A total of 14 projects are discussed at the meeting. Some costs have gone up. Now it's time to do the math. Is the benefactor on board?
Now we've got to get down to the nitty-gritty, Mr. Halkohl.
So that's 3, 4, plus 2, plus another 9. I'm just adding it up roughly, and another 2.2, right? So that makes 20,000. What did we do last year?
16,000.
That's more than a schnapps.
The Parents' Association contributed a healthy amount last time, about 3,000 euros.
If we could agree on a figure, I know the school association would go along with it.
Okay, that puts us in the same ballpark as last year, so we can sign off on that.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. We can keep the entire wish list.
What a relief.
That's amazing.
I noticed everyone fell a bit silent just then, waiting. Is he going to say yes or no?
Yes.
Whether the cash flows or not depends on his vote. Doesn't that seem old-fashioned to you? Like something out of another century?
Also ich bin erstmal sehr dankbar, dass es so ist, muss ich tatsächlich dazu sagen.
Well, I have to say, I'm very grateful that this is the case. Other specialists will have much more to say about the free market economy, about taxpayers' money flowing into the public purse. But I think it's difficult to strike a good balance between what's needed and what ordinary citizens can raise themselves. And we're basically thankful that there are people who say, I'm going to donate my company profits to good causes.
Michael Haukohl inherited a real estate empire. Selling it made him rich. More than 20 years ago, he and his wife decided to put their money into a foundation. In the years since, philanthropic boundaries have become increasingly blurred. What should the state be paying for? And where should foundations be stepping in?
It used to be foundations took the view that they shouldn't be funding anything that was the job of the state. But that changed 17 years ago, when the Possehl Foundation funded an upgrade of the heating systems in Lübeck schools. And everyone said, that's unbelievable. The state isn't in a position to heat schools properly. That's not something a foundation should be doing. We don't say things like that anymore.
Do you think that's right?
To a certain extent, no. We're sometimes appalled that the state doesn't take certain things into its own hands.
For example, to this day, it still hasn't got a handle on digitalization. There isn't Wi-Fi everywhere, and the list goes on.
But we also say, okay, if we can help, we'll do it. Things the state just can't manage. The school kids need tablets now, not in 3 months' time.
I actually think it's a good thing to have a certain amount of competition between state and private funding. If it's something completely new and the state isn't willing to assume responsibility, foundations can try it out.
Their donations do good. But even the Haukohls can't escape the patron's dilemma. In the end, deciding who receives help and who goes empty-handed is entirely up to them.
So, schönen Abend.